Good afternoon. I'm Brett Tingley, and I'm very excited to have Brenda Louisin with us here today. She is an educational advocate and my dear, dear friend. She has been very kind and to offer her time up to answer a few of the questions that we've received after the documentary. And so we had one that we were going to talk about today from Mike, and he's trying to figure out, he said, after you form a parent group, there are kids that are older that don't benefit from the changes that you've enacted, which is actually something that has affected all of the parents in UA Kid. All of us were doing systemic change in the district, but it wasn't going to be benefiting our children. But that's a conundrum, and so we can talk about that. And then basically, do you try to get private help for your child in order to achieve those results? But that's very expensive. So just let's talk about that for a few minutes.
Sure. So a couple things about that. When parents organize themselves and they come together to understand their district's approach to reading in this case, there often ends up being a systemic issue. So that there's a problem, and it's not necessarily grade specific or building specific. It is really across the district, and the approach needs to shift, right? And so I think when parents get together and they lobby to bring resources and bring about that change, that's an exceptional endeavor. But it is by no means an immediate or individual remedy for a single student. It's really about changing the culture of the district, and that takes time. It takes years. It's not an easy thing to do, as you witnessed firsthand. When it comes to an individual student and there is concern in the process as the district is trying to make changes, and we have kids that are getting lost, it's really, really important to always approach that as a single remedy for a student. And there are many ways in which you can bring about immediate change. So number one would be to convene the IEP team and to make sure that the right people are in the room to have a really good discussion about a child's progress or lack of progress. Secondly, it's understanding the data. So asking that the team provide you as a parent with all of the data that they have for a particular student, and understanding those standalone numbers. What does it mean? Where is my child? Where should they be? Where do they need to be in 2 months, 6 months, by next year? In this case, you talk about a fourth grader. We know that's an important year for our students because they're no longer learning to read. A big shift takes place in fourth grade. Now they're reading to learn. Our kids who are struggling are most often identified at this point, and it's not uncommon to see a need to change either the quality of the instruction, to bring in more specialized tutors who are certified in their area of intervention delivery. It's also not uncommon to increase somehow the intensity, duration, frequency of the intervention that's happening for a student. And all of those important aspects of a student's learning should be discussed in the context of an IEP meeting. Asking the director to come, maybe there's a reading specialist in the district, maybe there's a speech and language pathologist who is on your child's team, but convening the entire team and having this discussion becomes really important. And as a parent, being able to navigate the data, being able to navigate, now what? Now that we have all of this updated information, do I need to go to the private sector? Do I need to trust but verify? Do I need someone else to give the team a set of recommendations in terms of what to do? Becomes really, really important. And better that happens sooner versus later. And I think no matter what parent group is organizing out there to replicate something similar to what UA Kid has done in their own interest for their district and their concerns, the individual remedy does not fall under that umbrella. The kids benefit years later from those efforts. And it is changing the culture. It is changing how a district identifies students, remediates students. It's time, and we don't have that kind of time for our kids. The kids that are identified or in the process of becoming identified need to be dealt with urgently and critically. The instruments that are being used to make those decisions have to be valid, have to be accurate, have to be well understood by the team. But it's separate. And I think combining those two issues, if you think that your child is going to benefit immediately from the group's effort, that is not generally the case, and that is misguided. And I've seen a lot of groups unravel or lose momentum when they realize that their child is not immediately benefiting. So please remember, there's two ways to approach this. One is as a group, systemically, to change the culture. It takes time. And then the immediate resolution to make a remedy for a child. If you can't get that right at the district level, I think a state complaint is a consideration, asking someone at the state level to take a look at the data and help make recommendations, especially if there's a deep concern for lack of progress. Because when there is lack of progress, and you can prove that as objectively as the data would potentially support, then there should be a change. There has to be a change in the approach that's happening for your child. And you should feel that, and you should feel it within a short period of time. There is a level of progress monitoring that should give you the confidence. Maybe it's meeting with your team quarterly to understand what is the new intervention, what is the level of impact. All of those components can be measured, and it's not subjective, Brett. It can be quantified. And I think parents need to know how to set that up, how to align an IEP to support that shift in the approach, and what it all means. So it's definitely what helps you sleep better at night, knowing that you as a parent are seeking an individual remedy for your child. And if that process is daunting, and if you're struggling to navigate that, I think, again, hiring an advocate, bringing someone with you who understands the data, can help you process that outside of a meeting is really important. Sometimes you have educational advocates in your district, in your state. Every state has a parent training center. That's an incredibly, I would say, underutilized resource in most states. It's free. Some parents also have the means to bring in an attorney to help navigate that. It's really situation specific, but if you start at the lowest level, it is convening your IEP team, making sure the right people are at the table, and then you move forward from there.
Well, and we absolutely did exactly what you said, and we knew, and to fix the whole district is the ultimate goal. But until you have your own child squared away, you can't be useful to that group. And so we were very careful to pursue individual remedies for each one of our children, each one of the families who signed the systemic group complaint, because we knew you had to take care of your kid before you could help everyone else. But I love the idea that once your child, you've gotten the help for them, you don't just go off and start playing golf or something. Right. You refocus back in the district so that all the other children behind you will benefit. And then that's when the cultural change does shift. And we're at a place now in our district where we meet quarterly with the highest levels of the administration. And I start each meeting asking, now that we know what's possible for our kids, now that we've realized this and when we understand the science of reading and we're taking care of kids, the older kids who did not benefit, we owe them a special nod, because we know that we failed them. And so every meeting we start with, how do we help those children? What else can we do? And that teachers and the administration then understands it. And so even though they might have not gotten the really early intervention the way you want in kindergarten through third, they still benefit because the culture's changing and a lot more, they are getting a lot more help.
Right, and having, I think in UA, there was the certification, they brought in more certified Orton Gillingham teachers. They hired them already within their certification, and that really made a difference for our middle school kids and the high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that you can do both is important. So I guess I want to reiterate that. You can begin to commit yourself and your time and your energy to a group, knowing that that is going to be an endeavor of love, and it takes time, and it takes resources, and it takes patience to navigate that in a meaningful way. But at the same time, you are addressing every one student individually, and every parent needs to make sure that's happening, because it's very hard to devote your time and energy to a bigger cause when your child is not getting what he or she needs. And that keeps you up at night, and it doesn't put you in a good space to make change. So
Yeah.
You're right. We did the systemic, and we had a lot of the families filing individual remedies for their child, both informally and formally. So I will say informally in that we went to the IEP meetings, we negotiated with the team, we did a lot of outside private reports to bring in about change for a student. In other cases, there were state complaints filed. And the Ohio Department of Education in that case stepped in and helped us look at the data, and sometimes a different outcome resulted because of that. But we protected our kids at all costs, and we did not leave behind the students whose names that we knew. And that was important. So they were part of this big journey, and should be. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.